You've worked in 10 different industries in 7 different countries, from oil fields in Norway to a mine in Utah with Mormons. You've got a doctorate from the University of Oxford, and you were even awarded the best businesswoman in technology, which is a very cool bio. So what motivates you? What makes you get out of bed, and what inspires you to do these things? So, Rachel, thanks for joining me on the podcast today.
Hello.
Cool. All right, so you're the founder of Koru Kids, a tech platform which helps families find childcare. You've turned this from just an idea into a successful business with more than 10,000 nannies that have used the platform. What advice would you give to other startup founders, other entrepreneurs that want to build a company like you have?
So much. I think when I started in 2016, I really did not know how to do almost anything. And so for me, the kind of key thing that unlocks everything else is figuring out how to figure out the things that you need to know. So you're going to need to learn like 1,000 things. You know, I could say, here's how to hire, or here's some thoughts about sales, or here's how to make a good landing page. But there's like 2,000 things like that you have to do. And so for me, the key unlock is like, how are you going to learn that stuff really quickly? And for me, I'm a reader. So I read every book. I also read a series of blog posts. And the thing that I got particularly obsessed with is I kind of had this idea in my mind that if I understood why every other startup that failed, then I could avoid those mistakes. And if you could just kind of not do those things, then my startup would survive. And so I spent like a week reading, probably longer, maybe 2 weeks, reading like failure stories of startups. And the ones I really loved were the ones where they went really forensic and honest and vulnerable about all the mistakes that they made. And I found this database where there were literally like 1,000 of these stories. Someone had collected all the stories. So that to me was actually quite a keystone of like, here's all the what not to do. The other way that I learned almost everything was through community. Really early on, I was very lucky. I didn't realize at the time that I was very lucky. Only looking back on it, I now realize how lucky I was to get an intro into an amazing community, honestly, way earlier than I should have. This particular community of tech founders, they have thresholds for when you're meant to be able to join it. And now I look at these thresholds and I'm like, I don't know how I got in because I was not anywhere near the stuff. But I think someone knew me, or I don't know, something. It was something unfair. But I somehow made it in. And I just asked questions. I asked every question, every single decision problem I faced. And people were incredibly generous with their time and thoughts. And I really, really learned everything through community and through other founders. And sometimes I meet other founders now who might have been building their businesses for 5-10 years. And I say, oh, which communities? You know, I don't know you from my communities. Like, which communities are you in? And I kind of think they must have their own ones. And they say, oh, yeah, I've never really done that. I'm not really in anyone. I'm a bit of a hermit. And I'm like, how does that work? How do you know anything? I find it incredibly impressive, and I never could have done it that way.
Yeah. No, me too. We're part of one of the same communities, right? And I've got so much value out of just asking really basic, simple questions. And like I don't have any idea of the answer, because when you come at it from a complete blank canvas and you can get a little bit of knowledge from this person who's built something massive, a little bit of knowledge from this person, and she's revolutionized this sector, and you combine that together. Yeah. It's like I'm a masterclass on any particular topic.
Yeah, right? Exactly. And that's a really important point, I think, because this actually happened to me last week. Someone said to me, this is a wonderful founder who's built an amazing, amazing company. It's huge. And this person said to me, do you have any recommendations for recruiting companies for revenue, like chief revenue officer? It was a very specific question, right? And she was asking me, and I don't have any recommendations. I haven't done that. And so I kind of just had to say no. And this was one of these people who isn't in a startup community. And I was just thinking, as she asked me that question, you're asking these one-to-one relationships. Chances are the answer's going to be, well, no, I don't. I literally don't know the answer to that question. And the difference between that and posting it in a forum, in a really active, great community with like 200 people, of which 10 people might actually have the answer to that question, we don't know which 10, and getting 10 perspectives. And, you know, typically someone will say, here's a great answer, and then someone else will go, actually I used them and they weren't that great. And you end up with, you couldn't possibly have got such a good answer without using community. So for me, it's totally the key.
Definitely, and it really seconds what you mentioned around books, because if you want to learn about a very specific topic, you can spend years of your own life failing and trying and learning and doing, but instead you could ask somebody that's already done all of that work. They put it into a 200-page blueprint and manual, and all you've got to do is read that and follow that advice rather than going through the years of pain yourself that they've already done. So, you know, using those books, using that community, using that expertise, it will give you a massive, massive shortcut as opposed to people that haven't gone through that side.
I think that's right. Often people think of it as like the hard work or like doing your homework or whatever. I honestly see it as the lazy option. Like it's so much easier to just read a whole ton of like other people's experiences and then do something quicker.
So to help build your business, you've raised, I want to say more than $17 million now, okay, from a wide range of investors, including Michael Pennington, the co-founder of Gumtree. What tips would you give to others that are looking to raise capital themselves? Because we speak to a lot of founders at a very early stage and they're struggling to pitch, they're struggling to get investment, especially in this market right now. What advice would you give to people on raising? Because 17 is very impressive for a lot of people, right?
I think success is not really about your starting point. How in fundraising, it's not about whether you have a good pitch, whether you're good at fundraising, or whether you have a good network. You start wherever you start on those dimensions. But I think success is totally determined by your improvement trajectory and how brutal you are with yourself about and how reflective you are about how well whatever you just did went and how you're going to improve it. So you can start, here or here or here, but it's the slope of the trajectory that is actually going to be much, much, much more important. And so what that looks like, I often see, the mistake I most often see that I think is biggest, is I see a sort of a defensiveness in founders, and I see a sort of a victim narrative where they don't have agency and they are blaming factors external to themselves. I don't want to say those factors don't exist. Like, the world is unfair. People can be incredibly annoying. Like, that's definitely a fact. Yeah. But I think sometimes I see people taking that fact and using it as a reason to not have the steepest improvement trajectory they possibly can. So for me, I have been really, really successful at raising. I would say my initial pitches in every single fundraising round I've ever done have been totally shit, like utterly shit. And it's only because I have a kind of, I do it, I seek brutal feedback. So in one of my raises, I worked with a pitch coach, and I actually only worked with, I think I worked with him on 2 occasions, like I met with him twice. Yeah. He was so brutal, I can't even tell you. At one point he said to me, like literally everything I did, he said was wrong. Yeah. And this was after I had raised, I think I had raised over 4 million at this point in two raises, 2 oversubscribed, highly competitive rounds. And then I met with him just before our big Series A, this guy. And he was so mean. And he said to me at one point, I can't believe anyone's ever given you a single pound. Like, that's how mean he was. And that's also how bad, like, I was not good.
But you need that, right?
Yeah, I need that. That's my point, right? I sort it out. Yeah. And he then told me things that I've incorporated afterwards that really took my pitching to a new level. So just to give one really specific nugget, because I actually love this one. One of the mistakes, one of the thousands of mistakes I was apparently making, was I was presenting a statistic in a kind of a disembodied way. So I would say, our LTV to CAC is 3.5 or something, which is a good number, but what I wasn't doing was wrapping it up in an emotion. And what he said to me, which I've always remembered, is numbers are much, much, much more memorable to humans if they're attached to an emotion. And so, for example, you can the emotion you can attach to that is when you present a page with some numbers and you say, the number I'm most excited about is this one here, 3.5. Yeah. Or you can say, the number I'm most proud of is this one. Or you can say, the number that fills me with most trepidation, hopefully we can maintain it, is whatever. And can't you feel how that is so much more compelling and so much more memorable? Right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so he gave me these kind of, in the midst of being like super mean, he gave me these nuggets, and I was kind of able to incorporate them. But I guess that's an example. I really sought brutal feedback from everywhere, and I think in a systematic way, like reflecting on how every single interaction went. So you come out and you think, okay, immediately, okay, what are the 2 things that I did there that went well? What are the 3 worst things that I did? How am I going to not do them next time? And like really take systematic notes. Okay, I'm going to walk into the next one, so that you're just steadily, like a drumbeat, getting better and better and better.
Hey, this podcast is brought to you by WeLoveAlpha.com. If you're looking to grow and hire and scale your software engineering team in the UK, then go to WeLoveAlpha.com to hire the best software developers on the market. Everything across Java to C# to PHP to Python to React and Angular and mobile and more. Go to WeLoveAlpha.com to hire the best software engineers in the UK now.
And you're absolutely right that the majority of the people do the complete opposite. They're scared to get critical feedback because they think people are attacking them or their business. But in reality, it's the only way that you can improve. It's the only way that you can get better.
Yes, exactly. And I think also, in order to get the brutal feedback, you need to create a safe space for people to tell you what's really on their mind. Yeah. So very, very often, people will turn you down for a reason that is not the reason that they're actually telling you. And so you need to, kind of level 1, there's like levels of this, right? Like level 0 is you just don't even want to hear anything. Level 1 is you hear the thing that they say. And level 2 is you do something about it. Yeah. Level 3 is you proactively seek out the feedback. You say things like, is there anything else? Can I have a call with you to understand this more? And then you do something about it. Yeah. Level 4 is you say to them, you actually you make it okay for them to say it. And it depends on the specific relationship with the person and the dynamic. But that might look like saying to them, look, I know sometimes there are things that you don't want to say, but they're real. And I just want you to know, whatever you say to me, I'm not going to get annoyed, and I'm also not going to tell anyone else. This is going to be confidential. But I really, really want to know, like, what was that was going through your mind? Yeah. And sometimes you can even say, if you notice them, like the micro expressions, you can kind of say, I noticed you winced at one point. Can you just tell me, what was it? Like forensically digging. Because it's only when you get to like the real thing and they say, well, and it might be like, well, I didn't want to say this to you, but I don't think your co-founder is up to it. Or, it might be something like that. And you got to know that, because they're not going to be the only one who thinks that.
Yeah, and you wouldn't know unless you get really analytical and don't be afraid to seek out that honesty. So I love that. On the flip side of the coin, Rachel, you've invested in a couple of startups yourself, from healthy food brands to electric bikes. What insights can you share with people that are looking to maybe angel invest or invest in companies themselves? What would you look for? What makes an investable founder and business to you?
So I don't do a lot of angel investing, and I'm not doing it at the moment, just because for bandwidth and capacity. But I have at times invested in founders where I know them personally, and usually that's because I know them really well. And I look for like honey badger, like resilience, dogged determination. I just look for, there are certain people where you just know they're going to keep going. They would, they would, if they were halfway up Mount Everest and their legs fell off below the knee, they would just carry on. And that's what I look for. There's just that absolutely freaking, I am not going to give up. And that's because I never know anything about the product, the market, anything like that. I think it's just about the person at the really early stage.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, it's not necessarily about even the market or the product or the sector or what they're building. It's more about the founder at the end of the day. You know, do they have the resilience? Will they keep going when all their competitors are quitting and dropping like flies? Because ultimately, it's the last men and women standing that win most of the time.
Yeah.
And that's oftentimes what it takes, just the resilience to be the last people in the room.
Yeah, yeah. And also, like, do they have an incredibly high threshold for thinking about things deeply and well? You know, like, are they interesting, curious people? Do they have theories about things? You know, if you play, like, I don't know, Twister with someone, if you're standing next to someone and you're playing Twister and this person says to you, you know what, I've been thinking about Twister. Here's what I think the best strategy for Twister is. And they're like fully overthinking Twister, right? That to me is a massive green flag that, like, this person is a person who looks at things, thinks about them, makes predictions. And that's what, like, that's one of the key ingredients when you're trying to do anything new, set up anything new.
Yeah, we were playing a massive game of Twister with a bunch of CEOs and founders a few weeks ago, right? And the person that won that game of Twister, a guy called Mackay, he just sold his company for 110 million.
Wow.
Okay, I imagine there are certain characteristics and traits that led him to win at Twister that also could be comparable in his acquisition for selling a business for like 9 figures or whatever it was.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So I think you're right. I mean, the reason he won was probably because he thought about it differently as opposed to people like me that were out after the first round. Okay, so that was very much a networking type activity that we did. And you are really strong in this area. So the World Economic Forum made you a young global leader, you know, which includes people like Mark Zuckerberg and Leonardo DiCaprio. I imagine being part of that community and other communities that you talked about in your previous answers, I imagine they give you access to an amazing network of people and highly intelligent and ambitious and successful people. We talked about the importance of that a moment ago, but for people that haven't began that journey and started to surround themselves with people better than they are, how do they do that? Like, to the young entrepreneur listening at home right now, they don't know anybody. How could they actually just go out there and start meeting people and building that peer group around them?
Yeah, great. I mean, to put it in context, I am from a small sheep farming town on the south coast of the South Island of New Zealand.
I've been there. It's a lovely place.
Really,
but not much happening.
Very few people go there.
Yeah.
Like, really nothing is happening there.
Yeah.
So the reason I mention that is I'm definitely not a Nepo baby. I'm not even from this country, you know. So I actually think I do have a really great, strong network now, but it is 100% possible to build as an outsider and a stranger. And I think you just start where you start, and you make friends, and you get out there and you go to events. When I first founded Koru Kids, it was in 2016. The startup scene was doing really well with lots of cool events. There was Product Tank, which was a really vibrant scene. There was an event series called Don't Pitch Me Bro, if anyone remembers that. And that was, weirdly, it was a pitch series, I think. But anyway, you knew it wasn't pitches. You were meant to talk about your startup somehow without pitching. Anyway, so it was basically like there were lots of beer and pizza events. And I just went to every single thing I could go to and made friends. I never really think of it as networking because I don't want to spend my life like hanging out with people who I don't want to. I see it as making friends. I think that's if you think about it like that, then even if it doesn't go anywhere, that's not the point. Like, you don't make friends in order to achieve something. You just make friends because it's fun. And then you end up with, you know, a whole bunch of people who you really like. And if they're nice, they probably have other nice friends. So it really is just building relationships one at a time. Yeah. And then really everything that I have done, like just almost everything I've done has come in one way or another from an introduction to this person, to this person, to this person. Yeah,
no, me too. And you don't know what that's going to look like moving forward. Like, you can't plan it. You can't go, I'm going to meet this person and this person so this can happen. You just need to get out there, meet them, make friends, make genuine, real, authentic relationships without any agenda in mind. And then suddenly a couple of years later you can look back and connect the dots backwards and go, oh yeah, this all happened because of this and because of that. But you don't know unless you start. So the key thing is just to get out there and start meeting people. No, you don't have to have a plan. You don't have to have an agenda. Just go out there and start, building real relationships. Yeah. Try and add value. Yeah. Before Koru Kids, you had a really interesting background, right? So you've worked in 10 different industries in 7 different countries, from oil fields in Norway to a mine in Utah with Mormons. You've got a doctorate from the University of Oxford, and you were even awarded the best businesswoman in technology, which is a very cool bio. So what motivates you? What makes you get out of bed, and what inspires you to do these things?
I think initially I wanted to break out of my small town, and so I always worked very hard and always wanted to be kind of at the center of things. I had the real sense of living on the periphery and wanting always to get into the center. And then I now have been in enough rooms in the center to know that, it's not all that. Yeah. But that's been like a useful thing to viscerally feel. And, I know for an absolute certainty I never want to be famous, for example, which is actually quite a freeing thing to kind of know. So now what motivates me is I really want to build something of substance and build something which is a significant contributor to the society that we live in. I've always been very political. I studied politics, my PhD's in politics. I think a lot about politics and society, and I've always been very interested in the intersection between politics and business. And I'm very worried about the direction that society is going in at the moment. I think there's been a huge erosion of trust, erosion of institutions, and the organic institutions that are springing up to fill that void, I think in many cases are scary new institutions or new beliefs. I think we're going backwards in a lot of ways, on rights and respect. Very concerned about anti-Semitism, new misogyny. So I want to contribute to the fight, and the scholarship that brought me over here, which was a Rhodes Scholarship to Oxford. What they look for in people that they give this scholarship to is, there's this phrase we always use, Rhodes Scholars, and that's fighting the world's fight. And that was written in Cecil Rhodes's will in the 1800s. Cecil Rhodes was like a terrible person. But anyway, he wrote this thing about how he wanted people who would fight the world's fight. And that's what I want to do. I want to fight the world's fight. And I do think it's a very important time right now to fight that world's fight.
Yeah, I mean, why do anything else? If you get one opportunity in one life, do something big, do something bold, do something that helps make the world a better place. I mean, why do anything else, right?
No, I agree. I sort of, otherwise why get out of bed? You may as well just watch Netflix.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is fine also.
Yeah, which is fun, but a little bit of that, it's okay. Okay, so a few months ago, you posted on LinkedIn the advice, don't lose twice. I love that idea. Tell me a little bit more about, I guess, why you wrote that.
Yeah, so this is a thought that I think comes up in lots of different cultural contexts. I think it's Buddhist, I think it's probably other stuff, I think it's Stoic, and there's lots of different ways of expressing this idea. When something annoying happens to you. So I was 15 minutes late to this podcast, right? Okay. And you had a choice. You could have been annoyed. You might have been annoyed with that. I might be throwing out your day, and I'm sorry about that. I was not annoyed. But you could have brought that grumpiness, if you were grumpy, which he wasn't, by the way, but he could have been. You could have brought that into this conversation, and therefore made this conversation worse, and that would have been losing twice. And in Ted Lasso, the phrase is "be a goldfish," right? Which is just immediately forget. And Rafa Nadal recently in a graduation speech said the same thought when he said his version of it was next point. And what he said, as the most successful tennis player of all time, he said, I have won only 56% of all the points that I've ever played, which is actually pretty astounding when you think about it. And so he said, he loses an incredible percentage of the time. And what he does is, whenever he loses a point, in his mind, he thinks, next point, next point, next point. Be a goldfish, don't lose twice, next point. It's all the same thought. And I think this all the time. I've ever since I heard that tennis one, I've started saying to myself, maybe because it's just quicker, next point, next point.
And it's like a spiral. If you obsess over a little thing that's gone wrong, suddenly it turns into the next thing, the big thing, and then suddenly you've just ruined everything just by focusing on the fact that your coffee was too hot or too cold or something basic, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's in the past, just forget about it, and next thing, how do I win this moment? How do I make this a success?
Yes, next point.
And for the record, we were also a little bit late, so we were very happy that you were
Okay,
late,
fine.
actually, so it was a relief. So your business is ultimately a tech platform. So what are your thoughts on, I guess, the future of technology? And I ask this because last year, for example, you tweeted, why is nobody talking about the AI coming out of China right now? So what innovation really excites you? Is it AI? Is it something else? What do you think is going to have a big impact on the world ahead?
I mean, AI is huge. I think AI is the big news story. It's what everyone is talking about, and I think that is because it is the big story. I don't think there's like another big story that people are missing. I think people don't yet fully understand what it's going to happen. Where I see it going is I think we will all have our agent, which does most things for us. We'll interact with it, probably not by typing. I think that typing is not a very natural human interaction. I think it'll probably be by voice, but it might be some other way. It might be brainwave patterns. Who knows where it's going to go? But I think we will be interacting in a human way with an agent. That agent will then be interacting with everyone else's agent and with company agents. And I think we've kind of gone in my lifetime from no internet to internet as a place you go to, as in the computer was in the living room and you went over and did some internet and then you kind of came out, to like constantly online, extremely online. It's always on us in our pocket. And I think the next iteration will be it's actually literally everywhere in the air because we're talking to it and we're not even mediating through any particular device, or at least it doesn't feel like it. I see a lot of opportunity in that. You know, I think it's really cool. There's obviously huge amounts of potential downsides. The two that I'm particularly concerned about, one is further erosion of trust. So there are certain things we have gone since the 50s. We have gone from being able to rely on institutions, government, sources of news, professional expertise, to having every single one of those fundamentally questioned. I still do believe in those things, but a lot of people don't. Yeah. But the thing that we still have, even now, is the evidence of our own eyes and ears, right?
Not for long. Yeah.
Exactly.
Deep fakes, it's going to change
exactly.
everything. Yeah.
So we lose even that. Yeah. We can't even trust our own senses in the future. And what happens when you lose trust in a society? Trust is like a lubricant for society. You know, it makes all transactions easier. Trust, friendship, love. And so the opposite of that, when you lose trust, is every single thing that involves two human beings is just harder and worse. Yeah. So that's my first fear. And this is a problem I would love to work on. I'm not directly working on this problem right now, but I'm thinking about it quite a lot. Sure. And if I can get Koru Kids somehow to work on this trust thing, yeah, at a deep societal level, then I would love to do that. Otherwise, I'm probably going to be thinking about other ways that I can contribute to that, because I think it's huge. The other one is just, old-fashioned AI doomerism. Yeah. Like, I do think the probability that AI is not aligned with human interests and is extremely powerful and is linked up to all the systems of importance in the world, all those things seem very, reasonably likely to happen, with absolutely enormous consequences.
This is a quick message to tell you about Alpha University. Alpha University is an advanced training program to help you reach success in 7 simple steps. I am going to personally coach you so that you can achieve your goals, make more money, and transform your life. Just go to joinalphauniversity.com now, or click the link in the description. And, doomsday scenario, if it woke up, if it became sentient, if it became self-aware, would we become the apes and AI becomes the humans? I don't know if anyone knows really. It's very speculative, but it's certainly a question that needs to be asked, right?
I think it's right, and I don't even think it requires sentience. I think it can you can have a lot of damage through having a bad human actor who gets control of of something really powerful.
So hacking, or even just it hallucinates and
exactly
and fires a nuke.
just a mistake.
Yeah, and
it
happens all the time.
Just a misfire. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it now can happen on a much bigger scale. Okay, another potentially dangerous element of technology, less dangerous than an AI nuke, but I have a 1-year-old, as you know, and we don't really do screen time, but I've seen how addictive it can be to give him an iPad and that sort of thing. And then I'm definitely worried about social media when he becomes a little bit older. Like, what age does he have an account, and how does this all work? I'm very, very new to this, right? What are your thoughts on, I guess, children using technology? You're probably one of the most qualified people in the country to speak to on this topic, right? So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the good news is I'm very excited about the grassroots campaign against smartphones, which has just set the playgrounds on fire. It has been the fastest growing grassroots campaign I can think of in history ever, that I can think of. It kind of went in the space of a handful of months. It went from like the first parents setting up a WhatsApp group to like legislation being proposed by MPs. It's fully on, it's in the manifestos. I mean, that is incredible, like impact for a grassroots campaign. So I'm excited about that. I feel like there is hopefully coming a tipping point where enough parents say, this isn't okay, what's happening. But to kind of, that's the good news. I mean, the bad news is the thing is happening. So yeah, I think there's now huge evidence of the dangers of certain types of social media and access to smartphones. I've seen it just anecdotally with my nieces and nephews. I've seen these incredibly bubbly, lovely kids who are just a joy and delight become somewhat zombies. And honestly, I find it very sad. And I talk to my sister about it all the time. And, you know, I've said to her, her kids are a little bit older than mine. And I've said to her, what age do you think, we should be giving phones? And she tears her hair out over it. And she says, never. And she's joking, but she's not joking. She's got so her kids are 16, 14, and 12, I think.
Okay, so you can't really keep devices away from a 16-year-old in 2024.
This is the problem. This is the problem, right? And this is what I think the bit that we haven't quite figured out of the grassroots campaign. I think there are alternatives. So there are certain things that kids need. So I think everyone agrees they need Google Maps. I think everyone agrees that's like useful. But does my 10-year-old daughter need Instagram? I really, really, really want to keep her from Instagram because, I can just see it. It's so clear that as soon as she gets Instagram, there's certain, pressures about what it is to be a young, like teenage girl that she's going to be extremely susceptible because I know my daughter. And so for that, I want to delay. And, how many years can I reasonably delay Instagram? I don't know because I'm not there yet, but I think it's really, really important to try.
Yeah, I just interviewed Laura Stembridge, I think you know Laura, yes. Yeah, and we had a deep conversation on the impact of social media on children, and some of the stats were absolutely insane. I'm just trying to remember from top of my head, but it was between 17 to 25-year-olds, 1 in 4, because of social media, has self-harming thoughts, and 1 in 5 have an eating disorder.
I mean, it's astounding, and the way that children learn about sex nowadays, through seeing porn, like violent porn, at really, really early ages, like it might be 9 or 10, and this is what they now think is like what sex is. What does that mean for how they then engage in relationships? It's horrendous.
Yeah. Okay, so apart from screen time, as somebody who has a few more kids than me and they're a little bit older than mine, what advice would you give, I guess, to me and new parents? What tips, what recommendations? How do I raise a healthy, happy, successful baby? Maybe not successful, just healthy and happy. Right now, yeah. I'll take it.
Successful baby. I think, I'm thinking quite a lot at the moment about parent wellness and being, having enough energy to actually do the things that that you need to do. Because the things you
I
need to
love
do,
that. Yeah, I'll take
the
that.
things you need to do is like, you know, love them and care for them and play with them and engage. And we know all that stuff. The most important thing for child development up until the age of about 5, but really beyond that as well, is play. Yeah. Play is, the more you can maximize play, whether that's playing with you is great, playing with other kids is great, playing alone is great, any form of play is great. That is really all they need, and it's what play is. When you think about what makes something fun, like if we can just talk about play for a little minute. Yeah. If I gave you this pen, and I told you to hold it above the desk and drop it down onto the desk, and I told you to do that like 10 times, you would probably find that quite boring, right? If I told you to throw it across the room and hit, I don't know, hit this exactly.
I was looking at
you might find that like more fun, but it's almost too hard. Sure. Because I've given you something that is really very difficult. But if I told you to throw it from where you are and see if you can get it so a little bit goes off the desk, that's probably the most fun version of what I've just said, right?
Yeah, I'd be game for that.
So if I gave you those 3 challenges, that's probably the one you'd choose, because it's more fun. So the thing that is the most fun is also, pretty much by definition, the thing that's on the edge of your abilities, right? If it's too easy, it's boring. Yeah. And if it's too hard, it's also boring. Yeah. So when we, as grown-ups, or when children, and anyone plays, by definition, we're doing things at the edge of our abilities, which is why play is such a educational, like, superpower. And when anything that is kind of external to that, like, I don't know, like worksheets, curriculum, like that kind of thing, that's someone guessing where you're at, but it's not them figuring out exactly where that sweet spot is that's right on the edge of your abilities. So what kids are able to do constantly all the time is constantly adjust for the thing that is on the edge of their abilities. And we as grown-ups can create, we can give them ideas, we can create cool circumstances. You know, this morning at about 6:30 in the morning, I was out on my lawn with my 2-year-old, and I set up 2 hoops. She loves jumping right now. She's super into jumping. And so I set up a hoop for her, 2 hoops, and I jumped from one to the other just to give her an idea of a thing to do. I wasn't making her do it, but I was definitely doing it in order to encourage her to do it. And she thought that was brilliant, and she then spent ages like jumping between the 2 hoops. And the reason that would not have been fun for my 6-year-old, because for my 6-year-old it's too boring, it's too easy. But for my 2-year-old, it's exactly the right place on the edge of her abilities, and so it was fun. That's cool. Anyway, so that's why so that would be my key recommendation, is play. Yeah. And then the other thing to think about our yourself as a parent. I'm thinking a lot about like parent wellness at the moment. And the thing I think is really tricky about wellness is a lot of the wellness whole narrative doesn't really go with being a parent. And when you even hear like anyone saying wellness stuff, I feel like parents are like, ugh, because they're like, I know, you're going to tell me to take a spa day, which I can't do because I don't have childcare. Or you're going to tell me to like get up and do something at 6 a.m., but I'm already getting up at 6 a.m. with my kids. You know, or you're going to tell me to do something that's expensive and I don't have any money. Or, you know, I feel like that's kind of like a lot of the wellness stuff is either incredibly time consuming or expensive or like just doesn't go with having kids. And so I'm really interested in the things that aren't those things. And so one thing that I'm evangelical about right now is I recently started taping my mouth when I sleep.
Okay, I've heard of this.
Yeah, and I found from night to day, I am more energetic. I actually need less sleep now.
It stops mouth breathing.
It stops mouth breathing, but what it does is it increases the availability of oxygen to your muscles because in the nose, helps you access nitric oxide, which we need in order to process the oxygen, and your mouth doesn't do that. So I am now waking up feeling so much more energized, and that energy is staying with me through the entire day. The reason I love this particular thing is it's super cheap. Like, you can buy these mouth tape strips from Amazon for like £1.50. And you get like a whole pack of them. And it is really low risk. It doesn't take any time. In fact, it saves you time because you sleep better, you feel better on less sleep. Another one is, kind of hate to say this one, but it is true, cold showers. So I've recently started doing cold showers.
Yeah.
And another reason I love this one is because, again, it's free.
How long have you been doing them?
Like, matter of weeks, not that long.
And I'm like 5 years in now.
Really?
Yeah, every morning for 5 years. I've had like a handful of exceptions.
This explains why you're so good.
No, it's, I do it cold to begin with. I do it warm to begin with as I put everything on, and then I turn it freezing cold as I wash everything off. Amazing. And I do it for like 90 seconds. Yeah. But it's the hardest thing that I do, and it's the first thing I do every single morning. So this is easy because I've already defeated a monster this morning, right? And I know it sounds to people that don't like this stuff, it sounds like a little bit cliche or hustly or whatever. It works for me, and I'm not going to stop doing it. So
I actually look forward to it now, and I never thought I would have said that. Yeah. But for me, I love this one as well because it doesn't take any extra time. You've got to have a shower anyway. So I like collecting those sorts of little things. Yeah,
cool. Rachel, that's been amazing. It's been like a masterclass on children, on technology, on networking, on building companies, on investing and so on. For people that want to learn more about, I guess, your platform to begin with, what's the website, what's the app, what should they go to?
So Koru Kids, Koru Kids. And if you have a kid aged under 10, anywhere from birth until 10, and you're looking for fantastic childcare for that kid, you should definitely check us out.
Cool. And then your LinkedIn, you're really active. You're always posting about this space and advice for others and for people with children of their own. What should they search on LinkedIn?
Yeah, if you search my name and follow me on there. Right now I'm posting a lot about the election and childcare politics. I will move on from that. So I'm going to be, I write about child development, I write about wellness as a parent, the kind of thing that we were just talking about, and I write about childcare policy and what should be better in politics.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching this podcast. Make sure that you like, subscribe, follow, comment, etc., and I'll see you in the next episode.